I'm just not gonna make it. They knew it was a comedy joke. They know I hate that archetype. I don't care how long it's been there, it just makes it funnier the longer it's there, and everyone who voted for it ruined the joke, and I'm not going to bend to the will of people who want to ruin jokes. I'm not gonna do it. I am above that. I am too dignified to fall for their trolling. I will just not make an episode. I'm not gonna do it for them, but I can do it for Doug. Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Well, after about a year of being on the patron poll, the archetype I hate most has made its way into a video. Apparently, when you put something on a poll as a joke, no one understands that. You're not supposed to actually pick it. That's like satire, right? But as a man of my word, it's my duty to give this dastardly theme its shot, so premiering in the October 2017 core set Circuit Break, Altergeists are a series of ghosts in the shell piloted by Emma Besho, online alias Ghost Gal, in the Vrains anime. She's a tricky hacker and bounty hunter who, despite their mercenary occupation, has a heart of gold. And her deck of choice certainly reflects that first part. By focusing on wasting your opponent's resources turn after turn, robbing them of any momentum, these cyber spellcasters make quick work of exhausted opponents to steal the win. So let's log in to see what quick hacks we've got, find out how they can screw up a server, then splice in some code to really make their systems crash. It's time to... oh god, I can't believe we're doing this. It's time to ghost the competition with Altergeists. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons and the fine people over at Dragon Shield. If you want to protect your cards with the strongest scales on the market that even come with their own lore while supporting the channel, use my affiliate link in the description. So, what's the deal with Altergeists? Well, don't let their aesthetics fool you. They may look like cyber monsters, but are actually spellcasters, who are a mix of mythological creatures and computer technology. As an early Vrains deck, it does have a focus on link summoning, but you'll find that their link monsters aren't used for a majority of the duel. Instead, the deck focuses on using a number of quick interactions at ill-opportune times, for your opponent at least, and once you've done enough of that, they'll wonder where all their cards have gone to while you swing in to close things out. Let's start things off with one of their most famous monsters, Altergeist Meluseek, a level 1 water monster with 500 attack and 300 defense. This card can attack directly, and when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target a card your opponent controls and send it to the grave. And if this card is sent from the field to the grave, you can add an Altergeist monster from your deck to your hand. You'll see this card crop up in a lot of plays, and for good reason. See, it fills two roles that you don't normally see together: removal and searching. As an attacker, Meluseek is a fantastic way to break a board. Not only does it sneak in for 500 points of damage, great for time rules, and it sends a card to the grave when it connects. And while it won't interact with anything that has targeting protection, it does get by destruction protection and triggers because it sends those cards to the grave. And once it gets sent from the field to the grave, you get to replace it with another Altergeist from your deck, which is actually part of why this makes such nice material for our Link deck. Around this time, sent from field to grave clauses started cropping up on a lot of cards, so you knew it synergized with Link summoning, though it was by no means exclusive to it. And while Link 1s were a bit hard to come by in the early days of the game, Link Kuriboh showed up and turned Meluseek into a Stratos. Normal summon this particular digital mermaid, turn it into one of many versions of Yu-Gi-Oh's fuzziest mascot, and now you can grab any other Altergeist you want. Bonus points, Link Kuriboh can then tribute off future Meluseeks at quick speed with its graveyard effect, so that's kinda cool. And by getting this back onto the field using our theme's many revival options, you can trigger this again once you send it to the grave from there. So you don't have to go looking for a value engine anymore, you found what you seek. Altergeist Pixiel is a level 1 wind monster with 100 attack and defense, and you contribute this card to excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, adding an excavated Altergeist card to your hand, also send the rest to the grave. Okay. Not really much to say here. This is a kind of search card that ends up whiffing really hard every once in a while. Now, it's not like we don't have any graveyard synergies, but we'd like to be a bit more deliberate about that kind of stuff. But we're not exactly burning abyss here. Though, because it excavates, this makes for a funny tech card in Sylvans. Hit a few plants off of this and you are swimming in advantage. It might seem out of place, but sometimes you can't Pixiel and choose the support you get. Altergeist Puquiri is a level 1 dark monster with 300 attack and 100 1500 defense, and if any Altergeist monster you control would be used as link material for an Altergeist monster, this card in your hand can also be used as material. If an Altergeist link monster is link summoned to your field while this card is in your grave, except during the damage step, you can add this card to your hand. This positions Pukiri as a one-of that actually makes your link summons very cheap, though there is an argument for running more since they're really good at helping you set up your powerful links early on. And when it comes to recycling, you get that value immediately. As it turns out, when you link summon the Altergeist using Pukiri, it ends up in the grave when your new link monster hits the field, immediately triggering its effect to put it back in your hand. Combine all that together, and that means you can't put this card's utility into question. Altergeist Fafinalag is a level 2 Dark Tuner monster with 0 attack and 1000 defense, and your opponent's monsters can't target Altergeist monsters for attacks, nor can they target Altergeist monsters with card effects, except Altergeist Fafinalag. Now, as with most things in Yu-Gi-Oh!, the phrasing is very important. See, similar effects like Deskbot 7 would cause an attack lock because it says your opponent can't target cards except this one for attacks. Unfortunately, this text calls out the monster by name, so if you have 2 Fafinalags, it's basically the same as having one. You could say this is evidence that power creep doesn't exist, as why would the newer card be less effective than the older one, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. This card is just Fafinalagging behind. Altergeist Silquitous is a level 2 wind monster with 800 attack and 1500 defense, and as a quick effect, you can return one other Altergeist card you control to the hand, then target a card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. And if this card is sent from the field to the grave, you can target an Altergeist trap card in your grave and add it to your hand. Now this card right here gets my blood boiling. One part of the Trouble Twins, a term that's been used by the community for quite some time now, and by community, I mean me, Silk here is a menace, and that's what makes it so gosh darn effective. Like, compulsory evacuation device on legs seems pretty okay, but not that great, right? Well, Comp Evac only hits monsters. This hits everything. Dealing with Silk means that the owner gets one of their many good trap cards back, and putting your own cards back into the hand isn't cost. Okay, well, technically it is, which means it's really good at helping you get cards out of the way of interaction, but it's less of a cost and more of a setup tool so you can use them again later. This card has made me mad more times than I can count, partly because the Altergeist pilot always seems to find it, making Silquitous an ubiquitous threat. Altergeist Multifaker is a level 3 Dark Spellcaster monster with 1200 attack and 800 defense. If you activate a trap card, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is special summoned, you can special summon an Altergeist monster from your deck in defense position, except a copy of this card. Important note, this is one of those locks that works like Branded Fusion, that checks for the entire turn before and after, which effectively keeps you from splashing a lot of archetypes. Ah, look, the other member of the Trouble Twins, once again a term everyone uses, and I am everyone. This is the core of the Altergeist strategy, as it turns any trap card activation into this, plus any other Altergeist, and 9 times out of 10, that's gonna be Silquitous, which means you can use its effect to bounce Multifaker for the Comp Evac effect, which means next turn you can do this all over again. Oh joy! Heck, and with cards like Infinite Impermanence, you can pull this off on turn 0. Even if your opponent goes first, all you need is the Faker Imperm combo in hand, as ordained by fate, to get your whole engine online before you even see a single draw phase. Multifaker has seen some time on the FNL list, but now this card sits at a clean 3 copies, at least in the TCG. Oh joy. Seriously, if I could wipe any card from existence, it would be this one. I hate it so much. And no, I'm not doing the joke. Everyone does the joke. It's not original anymore, and I'm not risking a DMCA strike from Sega over it. And if I see any of you in the comments talking,
I'll make you eat those words.
Altergeist Fidgy is a level 4 water monster with 1400 attack and 1200 defense. When an Altergeist Link monster is link summoned to your field, except during the damage step, you can target one other Link monster on the field and special summon this card from your hand to your zone that target points to. Also, for the rest of the turn, that monster is also treated as an Altergeist monster. So you get to deploy this card from your hand and name change another Link monster into an Altergeist. It doesn't really change much if you borrow one of your opponent's arrows to make the summon. We can't really interact with our opponent's Altergeist monsters very much, but by name changing our own monsters, they can now be used as material for the Link summon of our Link monsters, since their materials are pretty exclusively Altergeist. Though don't ask me how you're getting a non-Altergeist Link on board with Multifaker around aside from, like, Linkuriboh. This is more of an interesting card than anything else, giving you some link climbing options in certain scenarios, and because of how searchable your whole deck is, you can easily get away with playing a single copy to tutor out when you need to. I suppose it's also nice that you can cloak your monsters as an Altergeist, so that they can watch region-locked content that other archetypes don't have access to. I'm not currently sponsored by Altergeist VPN, but if you're listening, call me. Altergeist Marionetter is a level 4 light monster with 1600 attack and 1700 defense, and when this card is normal summoned, you can set an Altergeist trap card directly from your deck to your spell and trap zone. They can also target an Altergeist card you control and an Altergeist monster in your grave, and on resolution, send the target on the field to the grave, and if you do, special summon that other monster from your grave. Oh boy, now this is a piece of work. Trust me when I say that this Archetypes trap card lineup is immaculate, so being able to tutor up any one of them is outrageous. And then you get to swap out Altergeists every turn. So not only do you get back cards like Multi-Faker to trigger its effects or Silquitus for the quick removal, it also triggers all the send from field to grave effects, so you can get the search from Meluseek or Silquitus' trap card recycling. Also notice that there's no restriction on what kinds of Altergeists you can bring back, so our big bosses are just as recurable as our utility ones. This is another unalive on-site kind of card, especially because that normal summon effect can be reset by Silk, leading to even more access to trap cards, and thus more chances to string up your opponent. Altergeist Conquery is a level 5 Earth monster with 0 attack and 2400 defense, and when an opponent's monster declares an attack, if you control an Altergeist card, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, negate that attack. If this card is special summoned, you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and negate the effects of that card while it and this monster are face-up on the field. This makes Conquery a weird mix of Battle Fader and Fiendish Chain, though in this case, it only negates one attack, but the negate can be applied to any face-up card. You can blank those pesky field spells and back row on top of annoying monsters, and the opponent's gonna need something to get over the 2400 defense value. It's also not locked to using the Fiendish Chain effect when summoned by its first effect. It applies any time it's special summoned, which means you can lock off cards via Multi-Faker, or you can swap this back into play with Marionetter, which is actually pretty good, because if the card you negated from Kunk leaves the board, this basically turns into a vanilla. So the ability to reapply the effect with Marionetter is a handy piece of utility, making for one fine equine. Alright, now it's time to dive into the Altergeist extra deck, and we've gotta start with one of the funniest additions, a Synchro monster. That's right, we've got a lone, underwhelming tuner, which gives us access to Altergeist Dragvirian, a level 6 Dark Synchro monster with 2200 attack and 1200 defense, requiring generic material. When an opponent special summoned monster declares an attack, you can return an Altergeist monster you control to the hand to negate that attack. And if this card is tributed and sent to the grave, you can special summon this card. Now that last effect actually has some utility with our links, as a few tribute our monsters for their effects, so this basically lets you do that once per turn for free. The attack negate also pairs well with Conquery, as none of its effects have any once per turn clauses, so you can negate one attack with Kunk, negate another attack from a special summoned monster with Dragvirian's effect by bouncing Conquery, then stop another attack with the Kunk you bounced back to your hand for a third negate. But for the cost of 2 monsters, you can do a lot better. You'll see in just a second, but we have access to a lot more utility than a monster that's a single attack negate per turn and a tribute outlet. Maybe you could make this in a win more position to cause like psychological damage to your opponent, or you can use it to get Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon into play by using this and our tuner if we aren't Altergeist locked that turn, but jumping through all those hoops is such a Dragvirian. Okay, onto our real cards, the links. Altergeist Kidolga is a link to Dark monster with 1000 attack, requiring 2 Altergeist monsters as material. When another Altergeist monster you control inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target a monster in their grave and special summon it to a zone this card points to, but each turn it can't attack unless Kidolga has already declared an attack this turn. And if this card is destroyed by battle, you can target an Altergeist card in your grave and add it to your hand. Ooh, the destroyed by battle clause, that's gotta sting. As for the rest of the card, it's pretty nice. With Meluseek, it's not tough to get the battle damage in, and from there you gain access to any monster in your opponent's grave that can be special summoned, which will, of course, be only as powerful as your opponent can provide. Not to mention that this is a non-bow with Multi-Faker, and while the attack restriction is annoying, especially since it's stapled onto a 1000 attack body, you can still make full use of that monster you got by way of their effects, as well as being nifty material. I wouldn't call it the most impactful monster in the theme, but it certainly isn't Kidolgaing around. Altergeist Hextia is a Link 2 fire monster with 1500 attack, requiring 2 Altergeist monsters as material. It gains attack equal to the original attack of each Altergeist monster it points to, and when a spell or trap card or effect is activated as a quick effect, you contribute an Altergeist monster this card points to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. And if this card is sent from the field to the grave, you can add an Altergeist card from your deck to your hand. Alright, this is where it gets good. While our Altergeists are rarely powerhouses on their own, adding many of their attacks to Hextia results in a pretty big body, especially if you have one Hextia pointing to another. It's a real shame there's no way for Hextia to ever point to 2 monsters at the same time, but a little boost is more than enough, especially because you can trade that boost to negate back-breaking cards like Lightning Storm and Evenly Matched. Heck, Hextia comes with its own field to grave trigger that's stronger than Meluseek, getting you any Altergeist card from your deck, not just monsters. Once Hextia hits the board, it's difficult to stop, keeping you pinned down and toying with you until your life points disappear. Just another example of Altergeist's 6 sense of humor. Altergeist Prime Banshee is a Link 3 dark monster with 2100 attack, requiring 2 or more Altergeist monsters as material. During the main phase, as a quick effect, you contribute 1 other Altergeist monster to special summon an Altergeist monster from your deck to your zone this card points to. If this card is sent from the field to the grave, you can target an Altergeist card in your grave and add it to your hand. Prime Banshee works as a very nifty toolbox, trading away Altergeists to deploy ones from your deck, essentially helping you bridge any gaps your current lineup doesn't currently have. Marionetter may be good at recurring your cards, but won't mean much if you can't get the cards in the grave in the first place. This also means Prime Banshee has, by extension, all your Altergeist utility effects built in. Because this is a quick effect, you can trade out another Altergeist on your opponent's turn to summon Conquery to lock down a card, or even summon Multi-Faker to get another summon. And as it turns out, Link 3s make for excellent material if you ever want to /can go into access code Talker. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention that this is another way to trigger your Altergeist grave effects, and if you tribute Dragavirian, you basically get the summon for free. And it, of course, has its own floating effect that gets you back any on-theme card from your grave and puts it into your hand. It's no Hextia, but it's a delightful way to make your opponent do their best Banshee impression as they wail in despair. Altergeist Memory Gant is a Link 4 dark monster with 2800 attack, requiring 2 or more Altergeist monsters as material. During the battle phase, as a quick effect, you contribute 1 other monster, and this card gains attack equal to the attributed monster's attack on the field. And when this card destroys a monster by battle, you can destroy a monster your opponent controls, and if you do, this card can make a second attack in a row. And if this card would be destroyed, you can banish a monster from your grave instead. Not an Altergeist monster, just any monster, meaning that hand traps turn into extra shields. Out of all the cards in the theme, this is by far the designated game ender, no doubt about it. Memory Gant has the highest base attack of our entire theme, can get bigger by tributing another monster, and has a double attack that triggers when destroying a monster that also destroys another monster, before that second attack even goes off, which thankfully lets you attack directly. The material sink is also pretty big, but with all our floating effects, we'll pretty easily make our cards back. And then some. This is actually double trouble with Dragavirian, as you can attack with the Synchro, tribute it off to Memory Gant for it to gain 2200 attack, going up to 4k, at which point Dragavirian revives itself in attack position, and then you have a Memory Gant with potentially way too much attack and attacks. And you can still attack with that revived Dragavirian because you are still in the battle phase. And it's got some destruction protection to help it stick onto the board just in case. When the Altergeist player finally commits to this, you know the game isn't lasting much longer. So move over, artifacts, there's a new scythe wielder in town. Alright, that's all of our monsters, now it's time for the spells and traps. Or really, just traps. Altergeist Camouflage is a normal trap card that has you targeting an Altergeist monster you control and equipping it with this card. Your opponent can't attack it for attacks, but it does not prevent your opponent from attacking you directly. It also negates any opponent's monster effect that activates by targeting the equipped monster. And if any number of Altergeist cards you control would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your grave instead. So it gives one of your Altergeists a lot of protection, namely a version of targeting protection that negates effects, so you can spring this in the middle of building a chain to get the benefits. It's actually a very effective card when combined with Fafinalag, because now that it can't be targeted for attacks, now you do have an attack lock, as long as you have one other Altergeist on board, as well as causing a targeting lock. And if this card gets sent to the grave, then great. It gives a little protection to any of your Altergeist cards, once again, not just monsters. It's not a bad card, though don't count on it to advance your game plan, or get you out of a severely sticky situation. The problem though, once you've got this deployed, is finding it again. The camo on this card is out of this world. Altergeist Manifestation is a normal trap card that targets an Altergeist monster in your grave and special summons it in attack position, and if you do, equip it with this card. And when this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. You can banish this card from your grave, then target an Altergeist trap card in your grave and add it to your hand. Though you won't be using that effect very often because Manifestation isn't going to even stay on the field for very long. This has got to be one of the trickiest cards in our arsenal, so let me walk you through how to use this effectively. For this, we need a Manifestation set, Sulquitus on board, and our opponent to have any card we can hit with its effect. Oh, and an Altergeist in the grave we can use for Manifestation. So, as Chainlink 1, you activate Manifestation to get your card back. Then, next time you have a chance to activate effects, put Silk's effect on the chain, returning the Manifestation back to your hand as cost. Now, if this was a continuous trap card, when Manifestation tried to resolve, it would stop, as those kinds of cards need to stay face up on the field to resolve. But Manifestation is a normal trap card, so the effect will still resolve, summoning the Altergeist. Now, Manifestation does have that little clause that destroys the monster it's tied to if it leaves the field, but here's the thing. Manifestation left the field before a monster could hit the board that it could get attached to. That means you get to keep the Altergeist monster, and you get to use that Manifestation for another one later. I mean, talk about manifesting results. This takes everything to a whole new level. Altergeist Emulate Elf is a continuous trap card that, when activated, special summons itself as a level 4 light monster with 1400 attack and 1800 defense that's treated as an effect monster, as well as still being treated as a trap card. If summoned this way, while it's in the monster zone, other Altergeist trap cards you control can't be destroyed by card effects. Also, neither player can target them with card effects. Kinda bites that the protection is reciprocal, though I don't know of many targeted cards we'd want to use on our own trap cards, so yeah, go nuts, I guess. This keeps your other cards, namely Manifestation, if it somehow sticks to the field, safe from destruction-based and targeted removal, and can act as link material because it's now a monster. It's kinda neat, but it's competing for space alongside our other trap cards, and when you can negate anything with a Solemn Johnson, being a level 4 monster that provides some nice protection just isn't going to cut it. It should really work on emulating the example of other cards. Altergeist Failover is a continuous trap card, and if any number of other cards you control are destroyed by an opponent's card effect, except during the damage step, you can special summon an Altergeist monster from your hand. You can also banish this card from your grave, then target an Altergeist monster in your grave and add it to your hand. So it replaces one of your destroyed cards with an in-hand Altergeist, and while in the grave, it gets you back an Altergeist from your grave. The on-field effect is pretty underwhelming, as it requires your opponent to do the work and only summons from your hand. This leaves the grave effect, which is kinda nice, but it's hard to find a way to fast-track this into the grave without outside support. Nightmares are, of course, brilliant at doing this, but you have to contend with the multi-faker lock. And that doesn't even account for how our resource loop already handles this anyway. Like, I know this card is named for when a system changes over to a redundant system when the previous one becomes inaccessible, but isn't the name Failover a bit on the nose? Altergeist Haunted Rock is a continuous trap card, and if it was set by the effect of an Altergeist card, you can activate it the turn it was set. When this card is activated, you send an Altergeist monster from your hand to the grave. It's not a cost to activate it, it's just a mandatory effect, which is weird. When your opponent activates a trap card, except during the damage step, you can send an Altergeist monster from your hand to the grave to negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. So it's a card you can flip quickly, but it asks for an initial charge of pitching an Altergeist from hand to do nothing. And then any future negation of trap cards also costs an Altergeist in hand. This would fit better if we were one of those archetypes that put our continuous trap cards into play face up. I'm looking at you, True Draco, but for now, this doesn't really scream game-changing card, especially because Hextia already does that, and better. Seriously, do not make this card your rock. It will provide zero support. Altergeist Protocol is a continuous trap card that keeps the activation and effects of Altergeist cards activated on your field from being negated. And when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can send one other face-up Altergeist card you control to the grave to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Oh boy, this card is another one that's so frustrating to play around. Like, on the surface, it turns your monsters into divine wraths, picking off monster effects you don't like once per turn. But by blanking the ability to have your on-field effects negated, you're actually countering a lot of cards by default. First off, Imperm is now useless, and Ash has very few cards it can interact with profitably. If your opponent somehow flips Royal Decree after this is on the field, guess what? Protocol doesn't exclude itself from its own protection, so it doesn't do anything against an established protocol. Heck, it means the Altergeist player can run Royal Decree and be totally fine. And that's not even the worst one. Skill Drain. You can run Skill Drain with Protocol and effectively turn this into a one-sided effect. It's legitimately ridiculous the kinds of things you no longer have to worry about once this card is established on board, and if you pair it with Hextia, you've got all the protection you could ever want. This Protocol is obviously an amazing card, but can it speak bocce? Personal Spoofing is a continuous trap card that, once per turn, lets you shuffle an Altergeist card from your hand or face-up from your field into the main deck as cost to add an Altergeist monster from your deck to your hand. It's hard to believe that a reskinned Infestation Infection could be so good, but lo and behold, here it is. Spoofing lets you fix up your hand or trade an Altergeist's cost so you can dodge interaction while still replacing it with a card that you need to keep your play sequence going. You can swap out a Conquery that no longer has a target for a Marionetter, normal summoning it to get your on-theme trap cards. Or shuffle back a Multi-Faker for anything, then summon it right back with Prime Banshee. Just keep in mind that you can't do this with your Link monsters since the Altergeist has to return to the main deck, but I don't think you're going to mind that too much. The only weaknesses here are A, if this card leaves the field before it resolves properly, you've shuffled back a card as cost and gotten nothing out of it, and also that this isn't actually an Altergeist card, meaning that you can't use Marionetter to get this onto your board. Aside from that though, this makes for an outstanding card, and you get to say that you're spoofing. Like, I know it's a legit term in the world of computers, but spoofing is such a funny word, and you can use it in many situations. I'll use spoofing to go for game. I'll spoof my monster, getting a lot of advantage off of this spoof. On your end phase, I'll spoof. It's the best. Viewers, give me your best spoofs in the comments below. Alright, so that's all the Altergeist cards, but what do we do with them? Well, the more control tools we have at our disposal, the better. We're already fairly skilled when it comes to disrupting individual plays, so the plan is to ensure we limit our opponent's plays to as slim a margin as possible. That way they have less wiggle room when we go to hack their systems. So what can we play to help them out? Well, as a spellcaster deck that lacks a field spell, it's only natural that you'd want to play Secret Village of the Spellcasters, and really, who could blame you? Turning off spell access has always been an effective way to shut off a variety of playlines, both by denying access to problem solvers like Book of Moon, Cosmic Cyclone, or Lightning Storm, to more on-theme engines like Sprite Starter and Palreino. And because Altergeists use so few spell cards, the drawback isn't usually relevant. And while Terraforming is only at 1, you know what's at 3? That's right, Metaverse, a card that'll trigger a Multi-Faker summon. Speaking of which, trap cards are the name of the game, and the more we can play, the better. As mentioned earlier, Imperm isn't just a great way to lock down a monster effect, it enables Multi-Faker. Evenly Matched is also an incredible board breaker that enables Multi-Faker, though you do miss out on your battle phase. And thankfully, since Multi-Faker is a trigger effect and not an ignition quick effect, it'll be summoned after the evenly resolves, so you don't give your opponent any free cards. As for more conventional trap cards, Dogmatica Punishment has been a mainstay of stun decks for quite some time now, as you can pop the initial monster, sending Intis or Fossil Skull Knight if the attack allows for it, to set up for another destruction, either immediately or to be stocked for later use, respectively. And because we're evil to our core, Dimensional Barrier shuts off a lot of good play sequences, or even some decks altogether, giving you more time to lock your opponent down and steal the game. There's also the Solemn Brigade. With access to 3 judgments, you can cover a wide range of eventualities, but you also have warnings and strikes if you want to play more than 3 counter traps. I've harped on about how Multi-Faker keeps you from splashing off theme monsters, and that can be true if you're careless with it. But because of its ability to trigger on your opponent's turn, you might be able to skip using it on your own. Heck, once all your pieces have been assembled, summoning monsters out of your deck isn't even necessary, so you can skip out on it at that point, allowing you to use your extra deck to its full potential. As mentioned, Link Karibo and Access Code Talker have outstanding roles to play here, but if we need to be a bit more offensive with our Link 1 Link material, go for Relinquished Anima. You get to scoop up a monster and hear the ever so delightful "Why did I summon my monster to that zone?" I don't know about you, but I feed on stuff like that. Magistus Artemis can also be used to fill a similar role to Ling Karibo, but can trigger the grave effect of Silk if you're that desperate. You also have Selene, which can revive your Altergeists, but you'll be counting on your opponent to generate those spell counters for you, more likely than not. As for a silly tech pick, try Dark Revival. It gets rid of an opponent's monster while deploying Multi-Faker. Or if you want something a bit more proactive, big spellcaster archetypes are a great place to play Magicalize Fusion. With 5 or more different Altergeists in grave, you can make Quintet Magician to board wipe your opponent, and you're left with a 4500 attack and defense titan that can't be destroyed by card effects. And, bonus, it can't be kaiju'd. If you feel like you need another bomb card in your deck to close out games alongside Memory Gant, it's hard to get better than this. And that's all I have to say about Altergeists. I still hate the deck, no matter how far power creep has gone to make it less of a pain in the butt, but I have to say I have a grudging respect for how the theme goes about its plays. I may be the kind of guy that likes to make big boards with beefy monsters, but I can appreciate that there are those out there that want to act like evil geniuses, pushing their opponent's buttons until there's nothing left but an empty husk. So, despite myself, I wouldn't change a thing. Or should I say, I wouldn't Altergeist anything. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do I somehow have Altergeist truthers in my audience, or do you agree that this deck is the most infuriating thing to ever be put to cardboard? And which one is your favorite? Honestly, the art for the theme is pretty cool, especially Kadolga. Shame it doesn't see more play. Also, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone you know who loves Altergeists or hates them as much as me. It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you in part by Dragon Shield. When you want to protect your cards with the power of Dragon Scales, get some sweet lore for them, and support the channel, check out my link in the description to get started. This video was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander Green Knight, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Andrew Newman, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Cameron Berg, Chibi Gohan, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba331, Great Big Pillock, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Ironic, Iskander711, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Mana Charge, Marluxia Zagirl, Meteornus, Mighty Action X, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Rem T Bright, RJ the Jank Monarch, Ruxith Sarani, Sammy Haim, Sophie, apparently, the Fresh Prince of Conair, the Charizard Flame, the Wizard Moose and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Ariel Kersey, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Chris Kessler, Corbinisms, Danny Bound, Drachenwald, Emony, Eva Padilla, Evan Socks, Haro, Herbal D, Jesus Garcia, Kale the Dragon, Carp, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-De-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Nitromo, Put a Card Trooper Up My Ass, call that Card Trooper an ass sandwich, but Noah Gent calls it lunch, I vote for Ophion to be banned, Shooting Star 3300, Star-Lord 777, Super Purd, the Legendary Raven and Tucker Ordorn, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people. So if you'd like to help support the channel, get your name in these credits, and get my videos earlier than anyone else, make sure to check out my link down in the description for my Patreon to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you want to see another trap card focused archetype, check out this video I made covering Labyrinth. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.